Imagine digging up, like, a time capsule from 1996, and instead of finding some faded, irrelevant artifact, the thing inside just jumps out.
Right, it just bursts out.
Yeah. It grabs a microphone, and suddenly it starts delivering some of the sharpest, most relevant commentary on our current cultural moment.
Which is wild because, I mean, you expect these relics of pop culture to just kind of stay quietly in the past.
Totally.
But what happens when one steps back into the spotlight with, like, more bite and clarity than it had 30 years ago?
It's crazy.
It really completely upends our assumptions about how media figures are supposed to evolve.
Yeah.
I mean, we are so conditioned to watch beloved icons just quietly fade into the background.
Or they become, like, parodies of themselves.
Exactly. So seeing someone return with just absolute command of the modern stage, it's jarring, but in the best possible way.
And that phenomenon is exactly what we're exploring with you today. So welcome to our latest deep dive.
Glad you're here with us.
Yeah, we are analyzing this massive, highly active thread from the Reddit community for Pop Culture Chat.
Oh, it was huge.
Unbelievable. This single conversation generated over 21,000 upvotes in just a matter of hours. And it was all focused on Rosie O'Donnell's recent stint guest hosting Jimmy Kimmel Live.
We should probably establish the specific environment of this source material right out of the gate, though, for you guys listening.
Oh, yeah, good point.
This thread was explicitly marked guest list only.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone unfamiliar with how that particular subreddit operates, that tag basically means the conversation is strictly moderated.
Right.
They utilize that system to maintain a highly curated, respectful space. It's actively shaped by BIPOC, LGBTQ plus air, and women-led voices.
So it's not a free-for-all.
Exactly. So the commentary we're unpacking today isn't just, random internet noise. It is coming through a very specific, culturally engaged lens.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to figure out how one single late-night monologue managed to just ignite this multi-layered conversation.
It really hit a nerve.
It did. We're going to look at how this performance triggered a debate about political satire, the radical transparency of Hollywood aging, and this massive, overwhelming wave of 1990s nostalgia.
But before we get into the mechanics of the jokes, we definitely have an important disclaimer for you, the listener.
Yes, very important.
Because the source material we are examining contains highly politically charged commentary regarding both Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump.
Right. It's intense stuff.
Yeah. So our role in this deep dive is strictly to impartially report on the viewpoints, the theories, and the reactions expressed within this specific Reddit thread.
We're not taking any political sides here.
No, absolutely not. We are not endorsing these comments. We're acting purely as analysts, just observing the cultural reaction as it unfolded in the text.
We're essentially like anthropologists looking at a digital campfire.
I love that analogy.
So let's look at the spark that lit this particular fire. The catalyst was a really specific quote from her opening monologue.
Oh, this quote.
Yeah, she looks directly into the camera and says, I'm back in the spotlight, all thanks to President Oompa J. Loompa, who is watching us this evening from inside a catering cart.
Such a wild sentence.
Right. And she goes, I couldn't have done it without you, sweetie. You brought me back just like you did with fascism and the measles.
That is just, it's a densely packed piece of writing.
Seriously.
It is functioning on like 3 or 4 different satirical levels simultaneously.
And the people in the thread, they latched onto this immediately. I mean, they were tossing around her other nicknames for him.
Oh, yeah, they loved the nicknames.
One user highlighted Velveeta Corleone, which is hilarious, and another brought up Moronathon. But I actually want to zero in on one highly specific line in that monologue because it presents a really interesting puzzle.
The catering cart.
Yes. She claims he is watching her from inside a catering cart.
Which is just such an oddly specific visual to drop into a mainstream late-night broadcast.
Right. And I have to question the strategy behind that kind of hyper-specific humor. Like, is it genuinely risky to use such a narrow reference on a broad network show?
It is a choice, for sure.
It feels a bit like a movie director dropping a deeply hidden Easter egg into a massive summer blockbuster, only the absolute most hardcore fans are going to catch it. Doesn't that alienate a huge portion of the audience?
You'd think so.
I mean, one user in the thread literally posted that they didn't get the joke at all, wondering if they were missing it because, and this is their words, they were autistic or Canadian.
What's fascinating here is how that supposed risk actually functions as a powerful reward system for highly engaged news consumers.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, another user in the thread immediately chimed in to explain the context to that confused commenter. The catering cart was a direct reference to a somewhat obscure news story.
Okay.
It was about officials at one point allegedly deciding to smuggle Donald Trump out of Turkey using a catering truck and a secret plane.
Wow. Are you kidding me? That is an incredibly deep cut from the news cycle.
It totally is. And by choosing that hyper-specific reference over, just a broad, easy joke, she's doing something brilliant.
Yeah.
Broad political satire can feel very stale today because the daily news is already so extreme. So by using the catering truck line, she is basically signaling to the audience, I read the fine print, I am paying intense attention to the details, and I know you are too.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it transforms the joke into this inside reference that builds a stronger sense of community among the viewers who do get it, or who learn about it in spaces exactly like this Reddit thread.
It effectively turns the monologue into a collaborative puzzle for the audience to solve together.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense. But, reading through the rest of the thread, the reaction wasn't just about admiring a cleverly constructed Easter egg.
No, it went way deeper.
It felt much heavier than that. It felt like watching a pressure valve finally being released on a dynamic that has existed for decades.
Well, because the audience isn't just watching a comedian mock a politician. They're watching Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump.
Right.
This is a very specific, deeply entrenched narrative that predates most of our modern political landscape.
One of the commenters synthesized this beautifully. They described her as having been walking rage bait for him for roughly 20 years.
20 years?
Think about that time frame. 20 years is an entire generation of a continuous public feud.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the commenters in this thread are incredibly aware of the unique real estate she occupies in his psyche.
Oh, totally.
There was this highly upvoted theory in the thread that delved into the psychology of their dynamic. A user pointed out that, historically speaking, Rosie O'Donnell has arguably garnered more of his sustained attention than any other adult woman on the planet.
That is wild to think about.
And the commenter suggested that she sends him into an empty rage every single time she smiles.
Spins inside an empty rage. That phrasing is so poetic and intense, and you can see that the users are entirely seated for this dynamic. They're treating it like a heavyweight boxing match, but the fascinating part is that one of the fighters is just standing there smiling, completely unfazed.
Just letting it happen.
Right. But the commenters also acknowledge that the stakes of this 20-year feud feel remarkably high.
Right.
Like it isn't all just popcorn and laughs for the people watching.
No, definitely not.
One user genuinely asked if the talk show was filmed in the United States, expressing actual, sincere concern for her physical safety.
That comment really shifts the tone, doesn't it?
It really does.
It grounds the conversation and moves it away from pure entertainment. It shows an audience recognizing the very real tension and the potential real-world consequences of high-profile political feuds in today's highly polarized climate.
Absolutely.
The audience isn't just passively consuming the media. They're actively worrying about the human being delivering the jokes.
They really are. Though I will say they are definitely still finding ways to have fun with the sheer absurdity of the situation.
Oh, for sure.
My absolute favorite comment in the entire thread was a user casually wishing that Saturday Night Live had used Rosie to play Steve Bannon.
Oh my gosh, that is an absolute phenomenal piece of fan casting.
The internet would have completely broken if that had happened.
Without a doubt.
But here is where the structure of this Reddit thread gets fascinating. That level of hyper-specific political awareness requires an immense amount of confidence to deliver on television.
It really does.
And reading through the comments, you realize that confidence didn't just stop at her comedy. The conversation organically pivoted away from the political satire and into something deeply personal, which was her physical appearance and the radical honesty surrounding it.
Right. The focus of the thread shifted heavily toward how she presented herself on screen, really zeroing in on her transparency regarding the aging process in Hollywood.
The aesthetic reviews from the users were absolutely glowing, like people were calling her a fine wine.
Which is high praise.
And one user, and I think this might be the best compliment anyone can receive, described her as a full cask strength whiskey.
I love that.
They were floored by how phenomenal she looked. But that praise sparked a really nuanced philosophical debate in the comments about what it actually means to age gracefully in modern Hollywood.
Yeah, that debate was triggered because she hasn't just naturally aged without intervention. She has been highly documented and very open about having cosmetic work done.
Right. One user pointed out that she had openly discussed getting a facelift earlier in the year, and another commenter mentioned Monjaro doing wonders for her. Monjaro being, one of those GLP-1 diabetes and weight loss medications that have become absolutely ubiquitous in Hollywood circles recently.
They are everywhere.
And bringing those interventions up led to a direct philosophical pushback right there in the thread. A commenter asked a really great question. If you get a surgical facelift and use weight loss medication, can we really say you aged gracefully?
Right, isn't that a total contradiction of terms?
Exactly.
It forced the entire community to collectively define their terms. And what the thread ultimately concluded is that the concept of aging gracefully has fundamentally shifted in the year 2026.
It really has.
It's no longer strictly defined as avoiding surgery altogether. Aging gracefully is now about the intent behind the cosmetic procedures and the absolute transparency surrounding them.
It's kind of like restoring a classic car.
Oh, I like that.
Like if you have a beautiful 1960s Mustang, you aren't trying to bolt on a bunch of futuristic parts to turn it into a 2024 spaceship. You just want it to look like a really well-maintained, pristine 1960s Mustang.
Exactly. The users praised her precisely because she didn't do what one commenter described as 50 piecemeal procedures to make herself look like old silly putty.
Yikes.
They noted she wasn't trying to give herself entirely new, unrecognizable features. She wasn't suddenly trying to have, the sharp cheekbones or the full lips of a young Angelina Jolie. As one user perfectly articulated, she simply opted to put her own features back closer to where they started. She still looks exactly like herself, just deeply refreshed.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Watching this debate unfold, it becomes clear that the public, at least this specific, highly engaged demographic on Reddit, doesn't actually demand natural aging from celebrities anymore.
They don't.
They are savvy enough to know that Hollywood is an industry built entirely on aesthetics. What they demand now is authentic aging without the gaslighting.
Because they are completely exhausted by the old Hollywood playbook.
Right.
The audience is tired of seeing a celebrity vanish for a 6-month hiatus, return with an entirely new surgically altered face, and then attribute their transformation to, a new brand of olive oil or drinking plenty of water.
Drinking water. It's always the water.
Always.
The thread heavily favored the idea that they would rather someone get a full surgical lift and just be painfully honest about it, rather than sneaking in obvious, continuous work and treating the audience like they are blind.
Yeah, it's insulting to the viewer.
Exactly. So Rosie's transparency, openly admitting to the facelift, owning the timeline of her own face and body, earned her an immense amount of respect. It's basically an evolution of the graceful standard. In this new framework, it's graceful specifically because it's honest.
And that lack of pretension about her physical presentation connects directly to the core of her overarching brand.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the exact same down-to-earth authenticity that made her an absolute staple of daytime television in the 1990s. And that realization in the thread is what triggered the third major theme of this conversation.
Yes, the nostalgia.
A massive, overwhelming wave of childhood nostalgia.
Reading that section of the thread was like opening a collective childhood diary. People were gleefully listing out the specific hyper-tactile memories her appearance unlocked for them.
It was so detailed.
There was an entire sub-thread dedicated exclusively to those little rubber koosh balls she used to slingshot into the talk show audience.
Yes. And the users were obsessed with the distinct missile sound effect that played every time she fired one.
I can hear it right now.
Same. A commenter noted that specific soundbite is literally burned into the deepest recesses of their childhood memory.
The nostalgia went way beyond the talk show, too, though. They brought up her voice acting in Disney's Tarzan.
Classic.
They heavily discussed the 1995 coming-of-age movie Now and Then. One user mentioned they had just rewatched Now and Then with their 9- and 6-year-old kids.
Oh, wow, that's young for that movie.
Right, and the commenter admitted they had completely forgotten how much the film focuses on mature themes, like discussions around sex and growing up.
Yeah, it gets pretty deep.
But they insisted that because their kids already understood the age-appropriate basics, it wasn't a big deal at all. They argued the movie absolutely still holds up perfectly today, precisely because it doesn't talk down to its audience.
Which really speaks volumes about the enduring quality of the media she participated in during that era. But what is perhaps even more compelling is how the commenters contrasted her legacy with other major figures from that exact same time period.
Yes, this is fascinating. A very poignant comparison emerged in the comments. One user stated that Rosie is, what if Roseanne was sane, smart, and beautiful?
Wow. That is a heavily loaded statement that requires some unpacking.
It really is.
It highlights the starkly divergent paths that massive 90s icons have taken over the last 30 years. Both of those women were defining foundational voices for a very specific working-class, plain-spoken American demographic.
Absolutely.
But the commenters in this thread view Rosie as having navigated the subsequent decades while fully retaining her core faculties and her moral compass, at least according to the specific values held by this subreddit.
Right.
Another user backed this up by noting that looking back at old clips, Rosie and Conan O'Brien were always consistently on the right side of history.
It's as if she perfectly preserved all the cultural goodwill she accumulated in the 90s, and now she is cashing it in.
Yeah, but she isn't just coasting on past glories.
No, not at all. The thread was quick to note how actively she is blending that 90s goodwill with modern media formats. Users were genuinely thrilled that she still proudly speaks with her thick 90s regional accent.
Which is so rare now.
One user actually lamented that distinct regional accents feel like something that has completely died out in modern, overcoached, hyper-polished media training.
It's true. She is actively choosing to retain her geographic and class signifiers. It's another layer of that refusal to gaslight the audience. She sounds like where she came from.
And she is applying that unpolished voice everywhere. She's doing stage shows, she's doing the podcast circuit.
Yeah.
Users brought up her recent appearance hanging out with Amy Poehler on a podcast, which one commenter declared was one of the best episodes they had heard recently.
That's high praise.
Another user perfectly encapsulated this current career chapter by saying she is absolutely thriving in her Deborah Vance era.
Oh, that's brilliant. For anyone who doesn't watch the television show Hacks, Deborah Vance is a character representing a seasoned, unapologetic, veteran comedian who has survived the industry's gauntlet and basically no longer cares about playing nice.
Right, she's over it.
Applying that archetype to Rosie O'Donnell fits flawlessly.
Her resurgence is carrying so much cultural gravity right now that one user commented that they had previously sworn a blood oath they would never download TikTok, but they literally caved and downloaded the app purely so they could follow Rosie's account.
That is hilarious.
I mean, when you are single-handedly getting stubborn holdouts to download TikTok in 2026, you are operating on a different level of influence.
You are undeniably moving the cultural needle.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive looking at a single late-night monologue featuring a joke about a catering cart and measles, and we ended up unpacking decades of complex cultural baggage.
Well, if we synthesize everything we've analyzed today, Rosie O'Donnell's guest hosting appearance was essentially a masterclass in striking three very different cultural chords at the exact same time.
Yeah.
She delivered biting, hyper-specific political satire that rewarded engaged viewers. She presented a refreshing, highly debated transparency about cosmetic surgery and the realities of aging, and she provided the comforting, tactile embrace of childhood nostalgia.
All at once.
Managing to hit all three of those distinct notes in one brief television appearance is an incredibly rare feat.
I want you, the person listening right now, to consider why this specific reaction matters to your own life, because we currently live in an era of intense, suffocating information overload.
Oh, it's exhausting.
We are surrounded by artificiality at every turn. We have AI-generated content, social media filters, PR spin, and just constant gaslighting about what is real and what isn't.
Right.
In an environment like that, unapologetic authenticity becomes an absolute superpower. Owning your personal history, owning your controversial political stances, and literally owning the physical timeline of your own face might be the ultimate way to cut through the digital noise.
That is spot on.
People aren't looking for flawless perfection anymore. They are desperately looking for someone who simply isn't lying to them.
The audience fundamentally craves reality. And as we saw in this Reddit thread, they will embrace that reality, even if it includes the complexities of a facelift and the baggage of a 20-year public feud.
Which brings us all the way back to that time capsule we talked about at the beginning of the show. You dig it up, and the artifact inside hasn't faded at all.
No, it hasn't.
It is sharper, more relevant, and more engaging than ever before. But observing this phenomenon leaves us with a fascinating question to consider as we wrap up.
Yeah, if a single late-night appearance can trigger such a multi-layered, passionate cultural response, simply by leaning entirely into past controversies and unapologetic nostalgia, how might other dormant icons from the 1990s leverage their own unpolished histories to reclaim the spotlight in today's highly fragmented media landscape?
It's a great question.
Who else is sitting in a time capsule right now, holding on to decades of authentic goodwill just waiting for the exact right moment to open it.
Something to think about the next time you hear a missile sound effect. Thanks for diving depth with us.